Hi, so this is going to be the first working video for the Sugar Bear quilt, and I haven't cut my fabrics yet. That's what I wanted to talk about, is just fabrics. I'm about to start the half rectangle triangles, which end up being all the claws on your bear claw blocks. And I'm starting with Amy Zimbaldy's velvet fabrics, which are luscious. There's 12 of these, so it's actually a pretty good amount for Sugar Bear. And I'm going to end up pulling 2 of them out to be my cornerstones. So I'm actually only going to be using 10, which can work. It's a little bit on the low end of the fabrics you need, but the first Sugar Bear quilt I made, I used 15 fabrics, and I ended up with 2 whole fat quarters that didn't even get used. So 15 is for a really large amount of fabrics for this quilt, but somewhere in the vicinity of 12, you should be fine. 12, 13. When I pull out my 2 for cornerstones, I'll have 10. So a little tight, but I'm determined to make it work with these fabrics. Okay, so let me turn this around so you can get a better look at these fabrics. All right, this is Amy Zimbaldy's velvet fabrics. I am just swooning over here over them. They are absolutely gorgeous. They're not even in my favorite colors, and I'm still in love. So that should tell you something, because all of my quilts are peachy and gold. Okay, so anyway, here's what I'm thinking. These are 12 fabrics. I've said that 1,000 times, but I want to pull 2 for my cornerstones because I'm trying to just use Amy's fabrics in my quilt, with the exception of the background. If you bought a bundle of fabrics at Meander and Make, my fabric shop, you could use your bundle for your bear claw blocks, or you could use that bundle for bear claw blocks and your cornerstones. There's not a lot of fabrics needed for the cornerstone, so you could actually even just use scraps. So here's what I'm thinking, the fabrics that I want to pull. I want to pull this dark green out and use it for my little cornerstones in the very middle of every block, because it's very different from all the other fabrics. And I think if I use it inside my blocks, it'll be distracting. But if I use it as a cornerstone, it's going to work out perfectly. This is my thinking. Okay, so I'm going to pull this one for cornerstones. And I'm also thinking that this one is very different. Not very different, but I really like this one. I like it because there's not a lot going on. And I think it would also be a good place to use it for cornerstones. And I'm going to use this for that cornerstone that ends up being in the actual corners of the quilt too, in those half square triangles. So I'm going to pull this one for that as well. So those put aside, these are the fabrics that I'm going to be using for the Sugar Bear blocks. Since there's 9 blocks, I only need 9 fabrics for my half rectangle triangles, which is what I'm cutting right now. So I want to pull one of these out and not use it at all. And when I think about this is when I'm making star blocks or any kind of blocks like that, I usually don't like low volumes in those places. I'm using a white background on this quilt. I think it's white linen by AGF, but if I was using scrappy background, I would definitely pull every single one of these low volumes out. I think I'd pull this one and not use it at all. But I think for this, since I'm using the white background, I'm going to keep this one because it's, you know, you'll know it's a star point. I just get worried that my star points in my background will fade together and then the star points won't pop. When you use fabrics like this for points, like for those half rectangle triangles that end up being the claws, this really, really pops. It's saturated. There's no white on it, so it really ends up being it just pops. So that's why I like to stick with fabrics like this for those places. But I'm determined to use this collection, and so all of my star points are going to be a little bit more with white in them, and that will just have to do. I'm breaking my own rules for this collection. Okay. So I'm going to pull this one out. I'm going to use this on the inside of my Sugar Bear blocks whenever I feel the need to pop it in. But for the claws, I'm only using these 9. I hope I'm making sense and not confusing you. So I'm going to get these pressed, starched, and I'm going to go ahead and cut my fabrics needed for my half rectangles. And then I'm also going to go ahead and cut up all my background, which I haven't done yet. So I need to do all that first before I move forward right now. So let me do that and I'll be back. I'm back hours later. I'm just kidding. I did take a food break. But so I've got everything cut, and let me show you what this looks like. All right, so background was already cut, you know. So there's that already in my stack. And this, if you're looking at page 5, there's a green bubble that tells you the easiest way to cut your fat quarter. You cut 2 strips, you cut so many rectangles from each strip, and you won't have to split these up, because if you keep one strip and the other strips separated, those pieces that come from each of those strips, they will already be divided up into 2 stacks, which is exactly what you need. They have to be divided into 2 stacks because some of these need to be turned in different directions than these. This will be turned in one direction, and then this will be turned in the opposite direction. So it's important to have, I think, what do we got? We have 8 of each fabric, so we need 4 of each fabric in each stack. And that is pretty important. And half rectangle triangles are no joke. And if you mess these up, you are going to start to cry. So please don't forget to do stacks. And speaking of that, just a recap for that video that I did with the cutting chart. You can watch the cutting chart video if you missed it, but these also have to be in two different stacks. You got to have the same amounts, because these get the line drawn on this way and these get the line drawn in the opposite way. And I have made an entire quilt and messed this part up, so I know exactly how upsetting it can be. All right, so we're ready to go with our half rectangle triangles. So let me put these out of the way. All right, so in one stack, you're gonna draw the lines like this. And here's what I like to do. I like to take this mat and put it on top of a wooden tray that I have upstairs. And I like to watch TV, and I like to sit here and go through and do one stack at a time. So I'll move this stack out of my way so I don't mix things up. And I'll sit here and I'll draw this whole stack with lines just like this. And then on the other stack, I'll get those put out of the way so we don't mix things up again. I'll draw the lines like this. And this can get boring if you aren't entertained. So if you've got, you know, a TV show going or audiobook in your head, it's an ideal world. One thing is a question that I always get, because if you've seen any of my other video tutorials or you've purchased several of my patterns, you know I don't like to draw lines. I like to use that diagonal seam tape. I don't think I have any of it right here this second. But I like to use that diagonal seam tape to avoid drawing lines. But when it comes to anything this size, it just doesn't work. So if you have a laser on your sewing machine, I know some people do, you could avoid drawing this line. But if you are like me and you're like dependent on that tape for line drawing, it's just not gonna work with these. So I'm just gonna sit here and actually draw the line, old quilty style. And let me get these lines drawn and then we'll go from there. So there's my 2 stacks. All the lines are drawn on each of them. And I'm just going to take a stack of these and put it with this one, a stack of these and put it with that one, so that I don't get these mixed up, and then everything comes out exactly the way I need it to do, with 8 half rectangle triangles in one direction and 8 half rectangle triangles in the other. I think being organized in this section will save you a lot of trouble for making mistakes, because they're so easy to make with this shape. Okay, so I'm not going to make the actual tutorial of half rectangle triangles a part of this video, because there is a separate tutorial for that within your pattern. There is a tutorial for if you are using my half rectangle triangle ruler, and there's a tutorial if you don't have the ruler and you don't want to get it. So either way, you are ready to go. Before I start sewing these together though, I just want to show you on each side what it ends up looking like. Okay, so you'll take both of these, and I do this part at my machine. I don't ever pin them here and then take them to my machine. I just smack them together right at my machine. But these end up looking like this. Okay, so on both the stacks, this is what they will look like. These backgrounds go with this stack, they'll be turned this way. these backgrounds that go with this stack will be turned this way. And on both stacks, I'm sewing on both sides of my drawn line, and the rest of the way of making them is going to end up being the same. A little difference when you start trimming, but you'll see that in the tutorial. So let me get these sewn together and we can move forward with pressing and cutting. Okay, so I've sewn my half rectangle triangles, and now all I need to do is get them cut, pressed, trimmed. And so I'll, cut on the line, I'll press them, and then I will trim them using the ruler. But you'll notice that I did keep them in the 2 stacks, and just keep doing that, because we're going to get to a part where we start pairing them, and it's so much easier when they keep staying separated. So you're getting the different looking half rectangle triangles in each of the stacks. So let me get these all made into the correct size, and then we'll talk about pairing them up. So days later, I'm back and I have trimmed all these half rectangle triangles. And what I did was, one day I sewed them all, one day I pressed them all, and then one day I spent a very long time on the sofa in front binging Firefly Lane, and I got all of these trimmed up. So pretty big job. Takes a lot of time, but after this, things should get a lot quicker. What we're going to do now is just pair all these up, and I've kept them in these 2 stacks. We're going to put one stack to the side just for now, and what we're going to do is take them to our sewing machine, and we're going to pair them into pairs just like this. So we'll have a bunch of these, and when we get through this side, we'll do the same thing with these. The important thing is that you've got them in the same colors, and they look like this. Sets going this way, sets going the opposite way. So let's go do that, and we'll meet back here. All right, I am back, and they are all sewn up. And I like to just take a second and set my seams just like this on all of these before I start pressing the seams in certain directions, So I just want to do this. I'm going to do it to all of them. Doing this may seem a little fussy, but it really does help the seams go in the direction you want them to go in a little bit more easily. And also, if your tension is off on your machine just a little hair, sometimes that happens to me. Sometimes they come out perfect, but sometimes they just have this tiny tension issue. And so you can kind of see that it's pretty perfectly stitched, but there's just this little bit of wave to it. So my tension's not 100% perfect. So this also, setting your seams like this also just really helps with that. So I am always about setting my seams. So let me get this finished, and then we'll move on. Now we're just going to press all these seams open. So this shouldn't take too long. This will make things get nice and flat. And then just like this. All right, so this is how they should look, and I am going to do that for all of these. So I have everything pressed, ready to go. We have all of our little claws done, and whew, that is a really big section of the quilt. But the reason I make the quilt pattern like this, and I've made, Little Miss was the exact same way. You get all those points right out of the way. That way, when we're making our center blocks, we can just make the center part of our block and then grab our points, and we're ready to go. It just makes the block making part just so much easier to me. So what I want to do is I want to just group all of the same colors together. So you should have, let's see, 4 going this way and then 4 going this way. For each of your 9 blocks. And then that's all we're going to do. And then we're going to be ready to move on to our first block, which is Annabelle, and it will be in a different video. But I will see you then.